Hello YouTube, this is Quantum Fear and welcome to another one of my videos. This particular video is one of my series of But What Do I Know? And so sit back and be ready to listen to my opinion of today's topic. In this particular episode, I'm talking about my personal favorite meal, breakfast, and what constitutes a very good breakfast versus what constitutes a sort of breakfast. I know a lot of people who actually skip breakfast, you know, or just have like a piece of toast or something. And personally, I can't stand that. I wake up normally like at 4 or 5 in the morning. And so by the time lunch comes around, if I had such a small breakfast like that, I'm usually starving. Of course, personally, I tend to eat lunch about 10. So, you know, I've made my adjustments regardless. But what makes a good breakfast, probably my very favorite breakfast, is otherwise known as our breakfast sandwiches. Usually these go by you know, a bunch of different names. Egg McMuffin is a very popular one, but you know, it's the typical like English muffin with like a piece of breakfast meat like bacon, ham, or sausage on it with an egg. Now there's different varieties, you know. There's people who use biscuits. There's people who use just normal bread. I've had, you know, egg sandwiches. Very tasty. You know, they have their place. But I like mine with an English muffin, you know. Preferably a little bit toasted with, you know, some mustard on it. And then you put the meat, like I like sausage or bacon on mine particularly, and a fried egg. Usually the eggs aren't runny because that usually makes just a big mess. So if the middle has to be cooked, and so that's all put together. Now personally, I sort of cheat. I live right next to a grocery store, and so when I wake up on usually Saturdays, I'll go and pick up one or two, you know. But I mean, through some experimenting, I do know that it only takes a few minutes to make these at the worst of times, you know. I mean, a fried egg is only like a minute if you know what you're doing, and cooking eggs or bacon has never really been my thing. I have a hard time with it, but you can microwave it, and it's pretty acceptable, you know. And of course, there's sausage and or any really meat. I've used bologna before, and it works out okay. Makes it so good. Oh. And I love nice warm breakfasts, you know. Cereal, whether it's shredded wheat, you know, for a healthier bit, or like something with a bunch of marshmallows, like Lucky Charms. They have their place and all, but cold breakfast to me is just not so much a thing, you know. So, I mean, really, that's kind of the basis of my opinion about this whole thing. I like warm breakfasts. Breakfasts? That just sounds weird. Okay, so breakfasts. So, you know, things that have been cooked, so like fried eggs and stuff like that. And the sandwiches is just being my best, because my favorite, because I love sandwiches of any sort, really. And cereal is just kind of a chintzy thing for me. I don't know. I just never really much liked it. Much liked cereal of any sort. But I do know people who will go through boxes of cereal in like a week, and I have a hard time going through one in that amount of time. By the way, what you're seeing here is I'm actually fighting my way through Westfalls. There are a lot of people leveling right now, and so you'll see me have kind of like a harder time with it at certain sections. I'm also not much of in a hurry though, so I kind of let it, you know, I'm willing to sit and wait. I don't know if I do it in this video, but in one of them you'll actually see me, because I'm looking for a specific bad guy. I end up just sitting on the floor waiting. I figured that since all this stuff's really kind of sped up for you, it's not that big of a deal. Right, so back on to the breakfast thing. You know, I mean, I don't know, I'm just a fan of breakfast. I just like warm breakfasts. My favorite, obviously, like I just said, the sandwiches. But, you know, I'm a fan of going to like the diner restaurants. My family, we live in a small town, and so there's like a diner, kind of like an old Americana kind of diner, you know. And they serve all kinds of weird stuff. And I remember, I remember going there with my parents when I was younger, and I actually would have like hot dogs and like milkshakes, mostly because I like hot dogs and milkshakes. You know, I was like 12 or 13, so you know that's the kind of thing that happens. But then I realized how much annoyed my dad and decided to just play that up because he was always yelling about how that's not a real breakfast. But a little factoid: it turns out I didn't know this for the longest time. Generally speaking, most of the world does not have breakfast-specific food. Like in America, eggs, generally speaking, are considered a breakfast thing. You know, scrambled eggs, fried eggs. You know, you have those in the morning. But in most places around the world, they'll generally eat the same sort of thing throughout the day. You know, rice is perfectly acceptable for in some parts of the world as a breakfast. You know, and I just found that interesting. You know, but to go back to it now, don't get me wrong. I like other breakfasts. I guess probably one of my other favorites that I choose not to eat a lot because of just how much grease and fat is in it, but that's probably what makes it taste really good, is something what we call biscuits and gravy. What this is basically just your standard biscuits, white flour kind of biscuits, and then you pour over a sausage-based flour gravy, a white gravy, I believe, with chunks of breakfast sausage in it. And it sounds about as heavy as it actually is. I mean, it'll put you. It's a good thing you have it in the morning because you have all day to work it off because it's so heavy. But man, it is so good. If you haven't tried it, go to your closest diner or look it up on the internet. But try making this. It is amazing, you know. And if my mom has a recipe from her parents and my dad's parents actually, and she kind of combined them to make this really outstanding gravy with the right sort of biscuits, and it's just, she makes the best biscuits and they're just amazing. Now this is the sort of thing you can't eat every day. I don't think you can really get away with eating this once a week. I'm lucky if I get it twice a year as a Christmas or birthday kind of situation. But really that's okay because if you eat more of it, you're going to weigh about 500-600 pounds easy, you know. Oh, by the way, here's this choice. There are a lot of people leveling, and I am just kind of like, everything I need to kill are those the kobolds, and everybody's out there killing them, and so I'm just kind of sitting here going, well, now what? So as I rush around trying to figure out what to do. So I guess that would have to be my second favorite breakfast, is basically, and usually what comes with that is with the biscuits and the gravy, usually comes with a fried egg kind of thing. Very tasty. That's my second one. I would have to say my second one. But I never really ate that much of it because it is very heavy, and it does take a little bit of extra time. Now, third on that list of favorite breakfasts is something my mom called popovers, but it's more commonly known as Yorkshire pudding. It's not really, and it's not a pudding in the sense of what Americans think of. Really, it's like boy, how would you call it? It's like a baked thing where you make it and then you bake it and it kind of puffs up into like a roll kind of thing. And when we would make it at home, my mom would add like butter to it, or we would get it, and then you could add whatever you want. Now, I personally was just a fan of you add a bunch of butter, and such. My dad was very a fan of using jams and jellies and stuff, and it was really up to your taste. But oh, so good! And we used to actually have this growing up. We would have these like every Sunday. We would have this. It was like a Sunday thing, just amazing. I mean, seriously, it's like, oh my gosh. I guess, long and short, those are my three favorite breakfasts. Now, another controversial topic, if you would be, what do you prefer? Do you prefer pancakes or waffles? Now, chemically, they're pretty much identical. I don't know if there's much of a difference in what goes in them. You know, it's basically flour, milk, and something else. I don't know what the other ingredients are, but really chemically they're about the same. But what really changes is how they're cooked. Usually, for those of you who know, I mean, everybody probably knows this, but you know, pancakes, flapjacks, if you were, lumberjacks, I believe is another term for them. let's see, flapjacks, pancakes. There's other things they used to call them, but they would call them. But they, they're made on like a skillet, which is basically just a really hot, flat surface. You throw the stuff on there, you wait for it to cook, flip it over, cook, eat. Good. Now waffles use a special type of iron, so they're kind of crusty, and that's probably why I enjoyed them more, because it allowed you to drizzle like maple syrup on them, and then you could put like butter, and then I would drizzle maple syrup all over it. Now where I come from, maple syrup comes in one form, and that being natural. They're right from the trees, preferably not industrialized trees, because I found out about those recently, where they industrialize the making of maple syrup. But I do know there are people out there who enjoy fake maple syrup. Cornstarch is basically burnt or whatever. Excuse me. But those were my, but it's not like I wouldn't eat those. But those are usually we wake up and have those for breakfast sometimes, and that was usually, because making the batter is not hard from a scratch point of view, and so it would be nice to have those. Usually that would be it though. We wouldn't have like eggs on the side or anything. That's so that really wasn't that big of a deal. Now along those same lines, you can also have French toast, which is basically bread that's been dipped in basically scrambled eggs, or like the scrambled eggs before they're scrambled. You kind of dip it on both sides, you let it sit and soak, and then you basically put it in a pan and you let everything cook. Super easy, by the way. But that also is one of those things that you use maple syrup on, and it's very tasty, and I've recently found out it's very easy. But it doesn't take many eggs to have a lot of them, so you end up with this, like, I think I made it, and I used, actually, I guess I did use 6 eggs, but I ended up with 4 or 5 pieces of bread, and so good. And I actually ended up with a bunch left over from actual just scrambled eggs, which ended up being pretty dang tasty, I tell you. I don't know, just all my favorite foods amount from popcorn are really breakfast based. I just love it. And I really highly recommend that people, not just, for just your own sanity, to eat breakfast, I've seen people who are like, all I need is this, this Pop-Tart and coffee, and I'm just like, that's not a real breakfast, because breakfast, like what they say on commercials and stuff, it really helps you get the day going. You're not hungry throughout the day, because I find that if I eat a good breakfast in the morning, even if I have very light lunches and dinners, I'm not hungry, because you start off the day with the right amount of food, and it's amazing with the kind of stuff you can do and how easy it is. Even if you just take a bunch of eggs, make what they call a scramble, which is really just a scrambled eggs and you just put a bunch of stuff in it. If you look in your fridge, it's like, oh look, I got some cheese. Throw the cheese in there. Oh look, some ham that I don't know for sandwiches. You rip that up, you throw that in there, and and that kind of thing. And so, scrambled eggs, and so that only takes a few minutes, but it's super easy. Even something a little more complicated, omelets, which do take a little practice, because you got to learn how to what they call flip and what do they call it? Flipping and folding, I guess. And I've known of people who actually have specific omelet pans, where it's like, if I'm going to make an omelet, this is all I'm going to use. I don't use anything else. Nobody touches this except for omelets. And I knew at least one person, excuse me, got cat fur on my hands, who actually had a specific spatula to use with that specific pan. And if he saw anybody come even close to that pan with a different spatula, he'd get very, very upset. And it was really funny, though. And you got to think about omelets, though. You got to remember is that it doesn't take much to fill those omelets to like a breaking point. And so while sprinkling bits of vegetables or cheese or ham or whatever you're going to put in it, because omelet is what Alton Brown, a TV cook, calls as like refrigerator magnets, basically. Or maybe he calls it refrigerator Velcro. Or really, you can throw anything into an omelet or a scramble, as it were. and it'll work. It's whatever you have in the leftovers. Bits of cheese or ham or vegetables that were picked up and stuff like that. And you just kind of doesn't take much, and you just kind of fold it up. And even if it's just like a cheese omelet, and I've actually known some people who they don't really even put anything in it. They just make the eggs with the egg yolk, which is basically just taking the eggs and putting them in a bowl, and you just whip them up like crazy as if you're going to make scrambled eggs. Then you just pour it into the pan and just leave it there. And then when time comes, you take half of it and you flip it on top of the other half, and then they call it done. And that's what. Gosh, now I'm hungry. You know what? I should have known better. I ate. What did I have? I had a salad for dinner today. And while that's very healthy, and it kind of offsets I had a liverwurst sandwich, which actually is not bad. I'm actually finding liverwurst actually is not terrible. It has a very unique flavor, which isn't bad. And I put cheddar cheese on top, Cabot cheddar cheese in this case, and it actually tastes pretty good actually. When I think about it, but it's super rich and it's kind of heavy, and so it's like I don't think it's something I could eat a lot of. Anyway, so basically, and then the omelets are just like super easy thing. And I know I've seen people who don't put anything in it. I've seen people when I try myself, I tend to have kind of a heavy hand with the ingredients, and so I end up with like this omelet that's like bursting open with more like a burrito with stuff inside of it. And the problem is, if you don't have like a very thick omelet, then it ends up like ripping. And well, it's not. I mean, it all tastes the same, but it just doesn't look good, But yeah, so remember, breakfasts are important. Omelets are easy, and if you don't have time for an omelet, just throw an egg into a pan, and while you're getting stuff ready, you just kind of keep an eye on it, and that way you have like an egg or something. And it's important to have a good breakfast, not necessarily grease laden. McDonald's food, for instance, generally speaking, I feel you should stay away from it. McDonald's food, while high grade, it's not going to kill you. It's not high quality. So, it's just, you could do so much better. And it's, generally speaking, believe it or not, it is cheaper for you to go and buy a dozen eggs with your own bread and make your own sandwiches than it is to do the same with the same exact ingredients for McDonald's. What changes is the amount of time you put into it and stuff. And so, obviously I'm a fan of warm breakfasts. Now, I do enjoy, every so often, I enjoy something called Chex Mix for breakfast, which is kind of a snack food-esque thing, but I know how to make it myself, so I can make like a bunch of it at once. And that, to be honest, is mostly cereal-based. So, you have Chex cereal, you have Oreo, no, not Oreos, Cheerios, and you have, what was the other thing? Pretzels and stuff. And generally speaking, it's very cereal-based. Now, it's good, it's just that there's a lot of salt in it, and so you gotta be careful of that. And you gotta, some people don't like Worcestershire sauce, and that's what I use, which is not surprising, but Worcestershire sauce, what is surprising is that Worcestershire sauce is mostly crushed up anchovies, apparently. I had no idea. I thought it was a meat, probably like liquid smoke kind of thing. Now, this section that I'm in right now, right here, when I was leveling, old man style, this wasn't here anywhere. This whole place was kind of like turned it from, like, it was a bandit area, and it was weird to see this like this. But let's see here. Oh, I got about a minute left, so I'll just, what? Well, to sum it up, breakfast is very important. Try to make the time. I'm preaching, I guess, but try to make the time that you can, that breakfast will be there. And trust me, try to make the time where breakfast that you have the time to make it. And trust me, it's really worth it. Even if you just fry an egg or two and have it over some toast, which, by the way, was a favorite of my family's, where we would have scrambled eggs over toast for dinner, and that was always a fun thing. My cat's now in my way. There you go, kitty. Get out of the way. Thank you. But I guess that I'll end that with basically breakfast is not necessarily always just breakfast. Food is not just a breakfast thing. It's things for in the morning. Sometimes you can have it at night, and it's a lot of fun. And it was always kind of a fun thing for us. But at any rate, this is Quantum Fear. what do you think? You know, what do you think? What's your favorite meal? Do you like breakfasts? I mean, well, I mean, it's my opinion. I love them. But then again, what do I know? I hope that you have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.